All right. So Fred, we're talking about marketing planning here and the process that is involved. Go ahead and talk a little bit about evaluation, which is the first step in the marketing process.
Yeah, when any artist comes to our company, the first thing is a deep dive evaluation process. So we take a look at everything from photos, video content, their socials, after we've evaluated the music.
Sure. So it's like a situational analysis. It's looking at the artist and evaluating where they are so that you know kind of what you have to work with and where you can take them.
Yeah, and
Right.
and in that process, there's a lot of questions back and forth, whether or not they're a songwriter, whether or not they're tour.
Okay.
All of those things come into play. We want to know as much about them and their infrastructure or lack thereof when they come to us.
Okay, good deal. Let's move on to the next thing, which is team.
Yeah.
And, team is an important part in the marketing process, as we were talking about before this recording. So tell us a little bit about that.
So when we know everything that we've known about that artist, then we get into, what are their goals? What kind of budget may they have? Because the budget establishes how big of a team they may be able to have, whether or not they need somebody in sync and licensing placement, can afford a publicist, and when they can afford that publicist, when or should they even be going to radio, which can be very costly. So, we get into having them have an understanding of what is the best spend on their budget dollar, what kind of team we should create to be competitive, and what our needs are. We don't do anything that is like cookie cutter. Everything is tailor-made around that artist.
Good deal. So once you've evaluated them, once you sort of understand sort of what their goals are and what their budget is and what you have to work with and the team that you need to put together to actually execute a strategy, then of course another important step in the marketing process is creating some sort of timeline. This all has to roll out with some logical, organization. Otherwise the thing is just all kind of all over the place. So tell us a little bit about how you create that timeline.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in setup.
Sure.
But you must know we deal directly with Spotify and Apple and Deezer and all the DSPs, the streaming outlets, and they want to be a part of the process literally 6 to 8 weeks prior to anything coming out. So every time you shorten that window, you really cut down on the odds of you being able to be on a curated playlist, and you limit your odds of success. So typically we come on at minimum 3 months in advance, and then there's things that have to be done for each artist is a little bit different. Some already have usable, photos and things that we feel are competitive. If not, then we have to schedule a photo shoot. These things do take time. They don't turn around in a day or two. Getting back to the question though, we establish a timeline for a release of a track, or, it could be a pre-save campaign leading to an EP, or, with some of the older artists I deal with, they're still album driven. But even for a single, you want to be 6 to 8 weeks out in advance. You want to have guns blazing. You want to have video content. You want to have a lot of content to utilize on the socials. And that all takes time in orchestrating so it'll be competitive.
Now there's a lot of stuff that happens post-release as well. And it
yes.
just keeps on going. So of course the timeline includes that stuff as well.
After that single, to answer your question, post, it's really critical that you keep feeding the beast, which means you have a second, a third single, a fourth single, and you could have, a gap of anywhere between 3 to 6 weeks in between that first and second single drop.
Sure.
But you're being consistent.
Right.
Your TV channel, as I make a reference, isn't going dormant.
Right.
Never going dormant. You're continuing to feed it. And that's where I've seen success for new artists really happen, where you can't be bummed if the first single doesn't get on a curated playlist,
Right.
because it may be the second, third, or even the fourth single that the people at Apple or Spotify, they go, this artist is serious.
Right.
This is really a competitive, artist
Right.
that has a publicist, has a marketing team. They're not going to stop.
Right.
And all of a sudden it may be that third or fourth single, but you can't lose patience. And that's why, the importance of a real plan built out, the importance of managing a budget and spending wisely so that you can run the marathon, not the sprint, not everything all in on it's this track or I die. It can't be that.
Right, exactly. All right, good deal. So then, we did talk about this prior to recording as well, and that is sort of your war plan. The marketing plan that has everything in there. Is this something that you prescribe to with your company and with your process? Do you have the physical marketing plan in place?
Yeah, absolutely. We put an entire plan on paper, and it or a computer.
Sure. Yeah.
But that we bring the entire team in on that. This is about transparency, and everybody needs to know everything. Whether it's a radio person needing to know all the analytics from social media, whether it be your distributor knowing, and helping the cause and pushing for playlisting, knowing what's happening at radio, or what the publicist is doing. We manage that plan and update that plan, Bobby, on a weekly basis.
So a marketing plan is definitely part of bringing everything together with regards to managing this whole campaign. But it's a living, breathing document, so it's always subject to change based on information that is coming in from the marketplace. And but generally speaking, I'm sure that the course, for the most part, remains solid, but then little things will adjust as they develop.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because they do. When everybody is transparent, looking at the same information, okay, and you've got a line that you're going down, there are things that change that plan.
Sure.
Okay, for the most part, minor changes.
Yeah.
But even the spends, right? In some areas, we may have budgeted, right, to spend monies where we're not feeling like we're getting the kick that we need in those areas. We may be, and in the most part, what we do is we never grow the aggregate budget, but we shift things around.
Sure, absolutely.
So, all of a sudden somebody needs more money in one area, but the return is incredible. We'll shift monies around in a campaign. So it's very fluid.
Yeah.
Very fluid.
Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense.
But it's based on real info that we're getting from the team and, on a weekly basis.
Right.
So, the ability to move like a Learjet, not a 747. When I was in the major labels, it would move, that process would move really slow.
Right.
In the independent space, the do-it-yourself space, if you got the right people, the right communication, it's moving very quickly.
How about just theoretical things like understanding who your customers are, understanding who your fans are, understanding what your fans want, that type of stuff. Do you find that doing that type of research is also very important for a marketing campaign?
Extremely important.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, the artists that have been a great music, but a hodgepodge. Where it's a jazz track, it's a hip hop track, it's a pop track, it's like that. It makes it really, really difficult to hone in and focus. So I would say, look at knowing your competition, knowing where your music fits is very, very important. It's critical, right? Because the DSPs that I just talked about, they're very specific. Their curators are very specific.
Sure.
And we have to go to specific people for a singer-songwriter Americana style versus a rap and hip hop versus a jazz versus a country. They're diversified like that. So you can't just go, hey, it's great music. Trust me. No.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
I mean, even in an ad campaign, if you're putting out money, in an advertising, I mean, if it's something as simple as doing Google advertising, you need to really get that ad spend to as few dollars or cents as you possibly can to, acquire new fans. And if you're just kind of like throwing it out there, and you have no idea who you're actually marketing to, that can get extremely expensive. So, I'm
glad you brought that up, because we've run into that with newer artists where they hadn't really thought about that.
Yeah.
So you really hit on something that is extremely, extremely important. There's some older artists that we deal with that when we're running advertising, I can tell you we get the biggest bang for our dollar.
Right.
Because we're able to put in all those like models.
Right.
Okay. Whether it be on a YouTube video or what have you, all those liked artists that, similar.
Right.
And the response is just, fantastic. So you can't underplay the importance of that.
Absolutely. Just to kind of wrap this up, is your company affordable for the young DIY artist, on a limited budget?
Yes and no.
Okay.
And, I'll describe what we do for a Jackson Brown, per se, which is a huge team, and it's on a worldwide basis. And
Right.
there's like 7 publicists. That doesn't really work financially for young artists.
Right.
However, from a consultancy standpoint in evaluating, like I said, and maybe not necessarily, hiring the team, but, sharing our contacts and pulling some pieces together on a consultancy basis, it can work for a new artist.
So good. So that makes a lot of sense. So on a consultancy basis, they might need a phone call, they might need some guidance, and you kind of set them straight. So that is something that you could offer.
Yeah.
All right, good deal. All right, well, good. So Fred, thank you very, very much for spending this time for me. I appreciate it. We got a lot of good information. So thank you.